Next is Ambrose Raftis. He's the chairman of Northern Ontario Centre for Sustainable Development in Charlton, Ontario. I have not had a chance to. Now, I didn't meet Ambrose when we went to the island. He was a bit far away, but Ambrose met the other day, and this is a guy who's very invested in sustainability. Ambrose was born and raised as part of a large family in Southern Ontario. He studied industrial control engineering at Ryerson University and worked a few years in that industry before moving with his partner Linda to Northern Ontario, where they raised two children. A move to the north, I think, was just a great idea on his part. Ambrose has had a diverse and intriguing career so far, which includes trade and industry, academia, and not-for-profit sector, just to name a few. He has prior experience working with others to start a woodworking cabinet shop and later industrial training business. Through his work with Green Temiskaming, a local co-op, Ambrose supported the development of solar projects, including a partnership with a larger co-op, SolarShare. This led to the development of a $24 million community-owned solar energy assets in Temiskaming. Ambrose has also developed and taught courses in community development for Northern College, has been known to immerse himself in a construction project or two, including timber frame solar home. From an advocacy point of view, Ambrose worked with others to stop Toronto bringing their waste to the north, which was a very big topic, if anyone recalls that time. Throughout that process, he developed an enhanced sensitivity towards the environment and combined this with a deep understanding of the issues and pressures often felt by rural communities. Nowadays, Ambrose is the chairperson of the Northern Ontario Centre for Sustainable Development Cooperative Incorporated, based in Charlton, Northern Ontario. There, Ambrose works with a committed and motivated board of directors on the Charlton Sustainability Hub project, and we're really glad to have such experience on the board with us today. So really excited. Thank you so much, Ambrose. I'm just going to pull your slideshow up. There we go, Ambrose. Take it away. You are on mute right now, by the way. There we go.
Go back one too. Good morning, everybody, and it's really nice to be involved with people that are so energetic and committed to this. It makes it seem a lot more possible. So yeah, we set up the Charlton Sustainability Hub after a number of years of analyzing, I guess, the problems of development in rural communities. We ran into a number of concepts that we sort of saw as needing help, mainly knowledge and communication. We find rural communities, there's a sort of a blessed isolation, but at the same time that inhibits a lot of communication and information flow. So we're working with a traditional indigenous group called Keepers of the Circle, and essentially we're going to be blending indigenous and contemporary skills at the center. Next slide. Yeah, so we're partnered with the Keepers of the Circle, but we're also partnering with some municipalities in the area. And so we've got 5 municipalities that we're working with, and we're working to develop sort of a regional economic sustainability concept with them. And it's sort of the first time that we've actually worked with Indigenous communities and municipalities at the same time. So that's a sort of a page changer as far as we're concerned. Next slide. So the areas that we're focusing on, the key thing we want to do is we want to change the narrative of rural life with affordable low carbon living. Currently, we're essentially focused on rural communities based on resource development. And we wanted to look at some new areas. So the 4 areas that we're looking at is healthy food production, preparation, and storage. We think this is an area that can cement people together. One of the issues that sort of brings this together is COVID again. You know, we keep thinking, well, if that truck that brings that food up every day doesn't come for 3 days, then we've got 3 days to figure out how to survive. And I think right now we're not really ready for that. So we would like to develop some way more effective sustainable development, and we have the capacity to do it in the north. We just don't have the development potential at this point. The other thing is, in working with the SolarShare and the solar projects, I really recognize the power of local energy. If you can supply your own energy, you can do a lot of things that you can't necessarily do at current costs. And I have some estimates that if you put in your like a community-owned net metering system, for example, once it's paid off in 4 to 5 years, you can produce energy for about 4 cents a kilowatt. So a community that produces power at 4 cents a kilowatt is the equivalent of having a an oil well in their own community that goes forever and doesn't pollute. So it's a really big economic potential that rural communities need to take advantage of. The other one is low carbon housing and lifestyle. We look at a model in Europe of eco living where they optimize the concept of low carbon living using the concept of small private space, big public space. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But essentially, that's one of the concepts we want to bring forward, the social aspects of it, so that people learn that there's an alternative lifestyle to the one their parents are living, for example, and that we take advantage of some of the new digital technology and communication tools that are developing currently. Next slide. So the way we chose to do it, because I have a bit of a background in adult education. One of the things I learned is it's really hard for adults to learn new concepts because they tend to compare the new concepts against their existing ones. And by the time they've done the comparison, they've sort of missed a lot of the information. It becomes a sort of an internal contest. So one of the ways we thought we'd get around that is we just model it. So we're not really preaching it as much as just showing people as here's how it might work, and you can look at it, and we want to immerse people in it so that they learn the information, but they learn it by sharing it with others. So we're quite excited about working with the Indigenous community. We see a lot of the values that they have are quite complementary to where we're going, and we want to use something called a cost recovery pricing. So the idea is that we have incorporated as a not-for-profit, but we also went to Revenue Canada and got, with a bit of a fight, we got charitable status, and now but we using that we can have the building, which we'll show you later, which potentially is worth a lot and could be reassessed and drive us out of the market. We're converting it to an institutional tax structure so that we won't be paying local tax on it. And this will allow us to be able to bring in people with that don't have a lot of income but need to change. And we think, that the 20 to 30-year-old population is a good focus, people who don't have much income and are looking for a change. So it'll allow us to access a broader market. And it'll be run by staff, volunteers, and contractors at the same time. Next slide. So this is the building we have in our community. It was built in '85, and it's a beautiful building, and it's really quite well insulated. One of the issues we have with it, it's electrically heated, so it costs the school board around $40,000 a year to heat it, and that was in the 1980s. So it's probably more like 60 now. So the way we're going to get around that is we're going to have a solar net metering system on about 160 kilowatts. And with that, we'll pump power onto the grid all the summertime we don't need it, and we take it back in the wintertime we need it for heating. So 6 acres there, and we want to build accessible gardens, greenhouses, barns, and 4-season growings. So the idea is to provide an integrated lifestyle that people can observe and participate in. And the idea will be that participants will be able to come and spend a significant period of time there, maybe a month or something like that, and get a real feel for not just the components of low carbon living, but also the social structure of low carbon living, because that's one of the adaptations that really optimizes the value of it. And we're really looking forward to working with the Indigenous community, learning their lifestyle. They've been here for thousands of years and managed to not mess up the place too badly compared to our fairly short term. And so we think there's a lot to learn both in medicine and food from them. Next slide. So just to give you a bit of an idea of, so for the first phase is we'd like to develop some accommodation. We call them accommodation units, 30 units where people can come and stay for a period of time. And the units will be compressed living essentially. And we want people to test that to see if they can cope with it. We want to also bring in skills and apprenticeship, learn about, so people can learn how to do things with a hands-on perspective. But at the same time, we're not necessarily developing technical skills. We're developing, we call it community-based learning. So it's enough that you know what contractor to hire that has this specialized expertise in some areas. Some of it, gardening, we can do a lot of it, but some of the technical stuff, we just need people to understand the concept of it. So there's that. We also want to develop a network with the community so that not just the people that are there, but people from around the community can come in and be part of the changes. We hope to bring in young students from the schools so that they can learn about an alternate lifestyle, so that they can redirect their education, and then they can use this solar industry from there. Okay, so community kitchens. That's the other thing we wanted to sort of move on with, is we think foods are really a very unifying social component. So we want to learn more about healthy food, because if people aren't healthy, they don't make good decisions, and they don't have the energy to move forward. So we think food's a great place to start, and we want to share knowledge. So we hope to bring people into something called we call it a learning kitchen. So it's a place where people can learn about how to work, but we also want to record that so that it's digitally accessible to other people. And that's a great inexpensive and fast way of moving information around. Next one. So the service to the community. So essentially we want to have gardens so that young people can come in, maybe come in twice a year. The other thing we want to do, the basic idea would be, is to define a community where people can afford to live there without a full-time income, because we feel in the future there's going to be a lot of part-time and contract work. And so what we want to do is we want to help them be very productive in their non-employment activities. So if the community supplies a home and energy, essentially, then the rest of their time can be spent growing food, repairing things. We're also going to have a community office space, so they could have a computer type job and live there. So the idea is to develop a sort of an alternative environment where people can live, to take some of the economic pressure off the next generation, because we put a lot on them with global changes and the economics the way they're in. Next slide. So the way we want to share this thing, we thought that, well, originally we thought, well, we could build a development and we would probably serve the interests of 30 or so people, 30 or so families. But we really felt with the haste that's required on climate change adaptation and that we need to better share that more effectively. So we want to develop something called the virtual hub, so that we can teach like a community information, so that the whole community learns about it more effectively. And we think that sharing of knowledge is really quite empowering. It's from an experience we had with one of the First Nation communities, where they couldn't move ahead with a big project until they had full community support. And we feel that's the sort of the direction we need often in the North, is if we can get the whole community to understand the basic concept, then the project will go ahead. If not, there'll be a lot of people who will be resisting it for a number of different reasons. So we want to have a local hub so we can talk to people locally, but we also want to connect that group to the world, essentially, so that we can bring in information from other places, bring in the encouragement and stuff that other people are doing, and use that to sort of drive ourselves forward. Next slide. Yeah, so the big thing about learning, and I sort of take this out of my background with adult education, is it's one thing for an individual to learn something, but it's far more powerful if a team of people can learn it, because then the individuals can spend their time moving forward on the project and not necessarily convincing others that it's a good idea. So team learning is a big part of it. We hope to do that in the community. So if we have a project coming forward, we'll get a group of people involved in it and learn about it, so that they can speak with confidence in it. And I think the other big thing that rural communities need is we need to reduce the isolation we have. It's great for living, but it's not very good for productivity. It's also not very good to keep young people in the area. We've lost over 25% of our population in the last, I think, 25 to 30 years. And so the population's declining. And so the people that leave are the people that want to create and change things and can't find the environment locally to do it. So we hope to be able to create that for them so that they stay and build their own communities up. Next slide. So some of the youth One of the concepts we want to do with the low carbon living is to extend our growing seasons, so that we can retain our dollars in the community. So by growing food locally, it reduces the carbon loading on the planet, through the transportation. Also, a lot of the food supplies coming from other areas are threatened. So that means that at some point there's going to be increasing number of people that won't have food, or the cost will be high. But a lot of soil conditions are problematic too in intensive growing areas like in California. So the nutrient levels aren't there. So essentially what we want to do is we want to bring around a sort of a broader understanding of how we can grow food in our area. So we're going to be experimenting on different methods of doing it. One of the things we want to do, I guess we could go to the next slide, is to have internal growing seasons. Like with solar power, and the cost of it dropping quite dramatically, we should be able to grow food inside year round, so that we can have a 12-month supply. Right now we're pretty good with 2 months, but that's not a bit problematic because we eat for 12. So the idea is to create a year-round growth of food, so that we can keep our food dollars. And also the same thing with energy. If we can keep our energy dollars in the community, then essentially we can go from renewable to fossil fuels, which the rural communities are highly dependent on at this point. So essentially we'll be doing some exploring, researching, innovating, and sharing this information as best we can. So we're pretty excited to be connected with Rethink Sudbury, because I think that's the sort of networking that we need to have, and I like to be able to share the enthusiasm of the other organizations in our community, because I think that's a nice, good, fresh feeling that we could certainly benefit from. So thanks very much.